we're tuning in to the universal human desire, simply to be happy, not to suffer. And this connects us with the overall flow of humanity and the overall flow of life all around us. So I've come to think of love as being the affective dimension, the emotional dimension of our sense of the connection between everything, of really our sense of connectedness. The fact that we're connected with the rest of life, the natural response to that feeling of connection is what we call love. It's the way a human being responds to that our desired feeling of connection. Now, clearly, we're sometimes connected to things we don't want, and we want to disrupt that connection. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the feeling of connection to that which we want to be connected with. That feeling of connection, that sense of resonance between ourselves and another, between ourselves and the rest of life. So if we think of love in those ways, then someone who is awakened is going to be perhaps a more loving person. And that's something I've thought of quite a bit because, well, I know of people who are more loving and I know of people who are not so loving. And I know of people who I think of as really quite awakened who are not all that loving. And I know people who I think of as fairly awakened who I think of as very loving. And I've come to think that we all have different temperaments in this regard. Some of us have a more kind of cognitive temperament. Some of us have a more affective, a more loving temperament. Some of us are more concerned with the imagination. Some of us are concerned more with action. There are many, many different spiritual temperaments. So you can express your journey towards awakening and your awakening itself in terms of action, the things that you need to do, the things that you want to do, work for others, serve humanity, these sorts of things. You can express it in terms of cognitive dimensions of life. You can express it in terms of ideas and in terms of ways of seeing. You can express it imaginatively through symbols and myths. You can tell stories that unfold the components of awakening, and you can create images expressive of awakening, and you can create art expressive of awakening. And you can express it in terms of love, in terms of your feeling for, your love of the rest of life and of other people, of animals, the environment, of everything. So whatever your temperament, all of these domains play some part. There's no doubt of that. Each of these domains can be an aspect of a journey to awakening. Each domain plays its part, but for some of us, some of the domains are more important than others. Some of us incline temperamentally more to one than to another. So let's think about love. Love, that feeling of connectedness, that love of connectedness, that emotional response to the fabric of life. To be loving all the time, that, in my view, is the domain of saints. I don't think I've met many people who I think of as capable of loving all the time, of being unconditionally loving. Maybe, just maybe, I've met one or two. I can't really be sure, because I've not seen them under all conditions. But I've certainly met some very, very loving people. And although it maybe it's beyond us to be loving all the time, we can nonetheless cultivate modes of mind that enable us to feel feelings of warm well-wishing towards others. Now there's a distinction to be drawn here between love and well-wishing. Love, on the one hand, has this sort of powerful and intense quality to it, When we love someone, for example, we want to be with them much of the time, if not all the time. We think about their well-being much of the time. It's highly activated mode of mind. Well-wishing, on the other hand, can be less intense. Well-wishing is just, no, I want them to be happy, I want them to do well. And you can feel feelings of well-wishing even towards people you don't like very much. You don't like them very much. They don't appeal to you very much. Maybe there are even some characteristics about them that you don't like, you dislike. But nonetheless, you don't want that person to suffer. You wish them not to suffer. You wish them to do well, whatever they are, wherever they are. So these feelings of warm well-wishing towards others, these we can cultivate. And there are mindfulness practices, meditation practices that are designed to help us to cultivate these feelings of warm well-wishing towards others. And if we do that, if we engage in the process of cultivating feelings of warm well-wishing towards others, then that takes us some way along the journey towards enlightenment. We start to tune ourselves in to this sense of connectedness in the fabric of life around us all the time. So here's how such a practice might go if you're interested in engaging with it. It's really, really quite simple. It just begins with this understanding that none of us want to suffer. One of the things that unites humanity is that we all just want to be happy. We all just want to be happy, and none of us wants to suffer. And since that's the case, we can wish that for others. We can begin to call people to mind and just wish that they do well. So you could do this as a kind of meditation practice. You could just allow your eyes to close and call people to mind. Just let people pop into your mind as they do. It might be someone you met on the bus on the way into work. It might be someone who served you coffee in the morning. It might be a colleague, someone who works at a desk not far from your own if you're working in an office, or might be someone you met on a Zoom call yesterday afternoon. It could be a neighbor, it could be a friend, a relation, it could even be a pet, it could be anyone, any living thing. So you just let them come to mind, just allow them to come to mind, and when they do, you just say to yourself, may you be happy and free from suffering. You just say this quietly, silently to yourself. May you be happy and free from suffering. May you be happy and free from suffering. You just find your own pace, your own rate of doing this, and just do it. What we're doing here is nothing magical. This isn't a mantra, it's not a spell, it's not a prayer. All we're doing is connecting ourselves quite intentionally, quite consciously with the desire that others do well, that they don't suffer. We're just connecting with that. So we do that over and over for a short while, maybe 5 minutes, who knows, 10 minutes maybe. And then when that's done and begins to come to a close, we do something else. We think about ourselves. I mean, after all, amongst all the 8 billion people on the planet, we're just as worthy of kindness, just as worthy of well-wishing as anyone else. So we just turn our minds to that. May I be happy and free from suffering. May I be happy and free from suffering. Now, if it helps you might think about all of the things that you currently do to take care of yourself. You wash yourself, you feed yourself, you seek out the food that you prefer, not the food you don't like. You wear the clothing that will keep you warm, that's appropriate to the temperature. You might even choose the color of clothing that you prefer and avoid colors that you feel don't work for you or suit you. In many, many, many ways, in our exercise, in our environment, we already take care of ourselves. We don't want to be suffering, we just want to be happy. So we just make this conscious. May I be happy and free from suffering. May I be happy and free from suffering. May I be happy and free from suffering. And in this way, with ourselves and with others, We're tuning in to the universal human desire, simply to be happy, not to suffer. And this connects us with the overall flow of humanity and the overall flow of life all around us. This warm well-wishing, in time, may turn into really loving feelings, feelings of love for the rest of life. And certainly it can take us some way along the journey to awakening.